Well, before we start, I want to emphasize that this is a chat where we look forward to our questions being answered and learning new perspectives. However, the opinions of each person on this podcast is personal and should not be taken as advice. If you're going through emotions that overwhelm you, we urge you to speak to a professional, the number of whom you will find on the chat. When in doubt, seeking professional help is the best thing to do. Hello and welcome everyone to this yet another amazing episode of the Mental Health Series podcast. And today we have with us Soumya Jagatdeb. Let me tell you, she's a psychologist and a narrative practitioner who finds meaning in engaging with young people to co create a safe, therapeutic space which is respectful of their concerns, hopes, interests, and skills, alongside exploring the pertinent role of society and culture in it. She is also interested in community mental health, research, training, and in taking some time out for reading, writing, and learning Orisi classical dance form. She holds an honors degree in psychology from Lady Shri Ram College for Women, Delhi, and a master's degree in applied psychology, specialization in clinical psychology from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. So today we are going to talk about a very imperative topic which has created a global perturbance and has now become an issue of great concern, especially with the rapid global digitalization, and that is social media. And how is it affecting the youngsters of this generation? Hello, I'm Abhishruti, a 14-year-old from Kolkata, and I have with me my co-host Siddhant Vodela. Siddhant, would you please introduce yourself?
So, hey everybody, I'm Siddhant. I'm a 16-year-old homeschooler. I'm currently an art school student, which I have an online course where I'm learning digital art. That's my main thing. And because of that, the social media is a big place for me. It's kind of half of my world. This is where I kind of traverse around and just live life. But anyway, Miss Soumya ma'am, thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to spend this evening with you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Siddhant.
for coming.
Thank you, Siddhant. Thank you, Abhishruti. It's a delight to connect with you. I'm also looking forward to this evening. Thank you, Mukta, Archana, and Nidhi, for having me over for this podcast. I like Abhishruti right at the beginning pointed this out as a concern, as a global concern. I'd say that as happy as I am to share some inputs from my end, I'm also looking forward to hearing from all of you because it's a living, breathing experience for all of us, social media. So, yes, I'm looking forward to a meaningful evening with you all.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Ram, I have a question for you. Actually, a question from a teen. But before I ask that, I want to share something on myself. You see, I was one of those 2014 guys. Like when I was in class four, I think I was around 9 or 8. I was one of those kids who used to like fake their birth years and just create random accounts and play games on Facebook. So, the thing is, I don't know what it's like to actually to be old enough to use social media and then use it. I've always been, a cheater. I just cheated the whole rules and regulation just started at a really early age. So I'd like to know, like, is there an age when a teenager should be on social media? Because a teen has asked that Academy winning actress Penelope Cruz has laid down the rules in her house that kids aren't allowed to have social media until they are 16. Instagram says a user must be at least 13 years old to get an account. Should teenagers be on social media? If yes, what's a good age? I am really curious because I was 8 or 9 when I created my first Facebook account.
Right. Thank you, Siddhant, for that question and for sharing that anecdote right at the beginning of your question. I am not sure if you cheated your way. Probably it was a result of us not having proper conversations on whether or not, at what age, at what stage is it good for us to join social media, what
Oh,
kind of experience we'll have. So I think what you shared is probably relatable to a lot of us. And yeah, coming to your question on what's the right age. I know Instagram has 13 as their age eligibility to participate on Instagram. Um, I do know that studies and probably relatively speaking, age 13 marks the so called beginning of adolescence, right? And it is considered an age which will rather safely navigate social media as compared to childhood, right? So probably,
Ah, see, I see.
yeah, probably that is the thought process that has gone behind considering 13 or say for somebody 16 as the age to participate on social media. In my understanding, I don't think there is a magical number that will guarantee that okay, after this particular age things will be all right over social media. I guess because there are many intersecting variables over there, right? For example, the person we are talking about, what is the emotional well-being at the moment, right? Would they benefit from some kind of assistance while navigating the social media space? Assistance from friends, from family, and let's be mindful of our language, not imposition, but assistance, right? Um,
Oh,
do they have an understanding of the kind of content they want to connect with? What is the kind of content that they will not be okay with, that will be probably triggering for them, probably harassing for them, right? So I think all of these variables will come together to help us understand whether or not the experience for this person is going to be good over social media. And
do
if
you think that mental age plays a part? Because I remember when I was 9, I used to have the mentality of a middle-aged man going through a existential crisis. So I felt at the time I was old enough. Do you think there is a mental age that plays part?
Yeah, yeah. But I'm not sure if mental age is the term that I'd like to use over here. Perhaps it could be confidence on your bit, right? Or it could be some kind of conviction that made you feel that, okay, sorry, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're audible. You're audible. Are you speaking now? Because now you're not. It's there is silence from your part.
Hi, sorry, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah. We can hear you
Yeah,
now. We can
sorry.
hear you.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah,
power cut.
no
I
problem.
got interrupted for a while. Yeah, I was saying that I'm not sure if I'll connect with the word mental age over here because it could be different for everybody. I'm wondering if it was conviction on your end to feel that okay, fine, I will be able to manage social media, right? Because social media can be detrimental for even an adult who
Yeah, that's true.
so-called has the mental age of an adult, but perhaps is struggling in dealing with this space, right?
Oh,
Who probably doesn't have as much information about how to go about this particular, say, cyberbullying that has happened, right?
yeah, that's true.
So
That's true.
that is indeed an important variable that you're pointing at, but it can be very subjective from person to person.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for your answer. Now I kind of get a clarity. Like, now I actually don't feel guilty about starting too early. At the same time, I kind of now know, suppose I grow up and have kids, I'll know how to guide them and just what to make them clear about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siddhant.
Thank you, ma'am, for that information. Because, even I was kind of an introvert from the very beginning. So I was really anxious about how to use social media, or rather, like, what are the necessary information we must be having before we start chatting with so called strangers or people on social media platforms. So,
Yeah.
in this context, another teen had asked a question like, what should every youngster know before joining up on a social media platform?
Hmm. Right. I'm glad you're asking that question because this is something that I also discuss with parents or other important people who are part of my clients' lives. And it often ends up us brainstorming okay, what is fine or will work out in this person's experience. Generally speaking, I do feel that it's important to connect with your intentions first, right? Okay, I'm downloading the social media application. What are my hopes from it, right? Again, what is it that I'd like to share about myself? What is it that I'd like to find out about other people? What are my boundaries over here, right? Till what point can I bear what social media has to offer to me? And after what point is it becoming very saturated for me? Right. again, the ethics of being on social media that I feel should be something that every age group should be mindful of. Am I respecting the other person's privacy and dignity? Am I respecting my own privacy and dignity? What are the news that I'm looking at right now? Is it fake, or should I need to verify it through other steps, through other methods? Am I somewhere becoming a part of some oppressive conversations that can very well take place on social media? For example, idolizing a particular body kind, right? Or idolizing hustle culture to the point that somebody is feeling burnt out, right? Am
Yeah.
I offering a lot of views on clickbait resources? Right. So those are
Yeah,
also some kind of ethics that we have to be very mindful of for not just our well-being, but to also safeguard other people's well-being. And of course, the other side to this is to be well updated about the information about the application that you're using. What are the features that the application is providing to me in case of a crisis? Right? Is the data encrypted or not? Right? How is the government legislation also working with this particular application? Right? What is censorship? What is privacy over here? Yeah, so those are some general questions that I'm sure every person has their own way of figuring it out, but it does need to be figured out. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, ma'am. Actually, I was wondering, do you think the analogy for this would be like a youngster should know, like before joining a social media platform, is that like joining a social media platform is kind of like moving away to another city because like social media has its own rules and regulations, and then there are netizens, and there are you don't have your parents guiding you. So it's like
Yeah.
when you go to some other city where to attend college, and your parents aren't there to guide you, and you have to just come up with, you have to just kind of get through it. Is
Yeah,
that sort of thing?
I think that's a wonderful analogy, Siddhant. I'm only wondering if we'll have a reliable GPS tracker while navigating our journey on social media.
That's true.
Right? That is what is distinguishing it from real life movement, from real life conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just it's basically a city where like Mark Zuckerberg is a dictator or something. It would be
Yes.
that would be called Facebook.
Yeah, perhaps embedded in the very fabric of that city.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And I
So
would
I
also say,
have another question from a team.
Sure.
So now it's something which is very serious, like the rise of social media use in young people coincides with the rise in mental health concerns. Like for example, for me, I often feel that because during COVID lockdown, there would be like I've kind of lost contact with a lot of my friends, so I kind of feel insecure that I barely have any social, barely like a very fragile social circle. So suppose I see some people who have still managed to somehow miraculously keep contact with their friends. I often feel if there's something wrong with me that I can't really connect with other humans, something like that. So, do you think that social media is setting unrealistic standards for the teens of today? Like, what effects of social media are you seeing among teens in your day to day life?
Right. Indeed. I fully agree with you. I think somewhere I relate to you also.
Oh,
I would say that I mean, if we look at it in a very simple way, all of us have a, let's say, a biological and evolutionary need to connect with people, right? And if the very way of doing it is only social media, say suppose in the circumstances of a lockdown, the person is likely going to feel like they're missing out on something huge, right? That could have
yeah,
direct
that
impact on their life.
FOMO is a big problem.
Correct. Right. Having said that, even though all of us may have the need to communicate, we all have a different pace, our different energies, our different degrees at it, right? And there can't be a one size fit all that, okay, this is how one needs to communicate, that unfortunately social media ends up delivering to us.
Oh, I see.
Like in real time, if I was speaking to all of you, you would perhaps connect with me also in terms of my facial expressions right now, also in terms of my non-verbal body gestures, right, which we are missing out over social media.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because personally, I feel it's easier for me to mind to people what I want to express rather than just like, talk it out and be like,
Right.
blah, blah.
Right. And what happens over social media is that we have, I think, a good amount of time to curate perhaps the perfect answer, right? Or the perfect response, or put out our best
Yes.
version
Yeah.
out there, right? Now, what's happening because of it is that we are probably taking ourselves away from the experience of being fully human. If I was talking to you in person, perhaps face to face, I would my response would be a combination of thinking at the in the moment, right? Plus getting something right, plus probably getting something wrong, right? Sitting with it, and then eventually, finishing the conversation. Over social media, there is so much scrutiny, so much obligation to give the right answer. And we do have the time and the resources to curate the best response out there, right? As a result of it, all of us have our best versions out there, which directly and indirectly sends out messages of being perfect, right? Of behaving and talking in a particular way, of only uploading pictures in a particular way, right? It becomes really difficult to understand that what we're uploading is perhaps just a preview of what our whole life is actually.
Oh, ma'am, I would like to point out something that Mr. Vijay has said in the chat that social media is to teenagers today what TV was to them when they were younger, when they were teenagers. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
so what do you think about that?
Uh, I guess the index of comparison over here is that TV used to be a form of digital media, not digital actually, mass media back then, right? And for us, it's largely social media. However, TV was not guided by an artificial intelligence sitting behind it and churning out algorithms, right?
That's
Ensuring that
true.
it
That's true.
has our attention from 7 a.m. in the morning to 3 p.m., 3 a.m. at night, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That is
yeah.
the concern that we are facing with social media. Yeah. I mean, we're not just talking about effects on an individual, we're also addressing effects on, say, politics of the country, say, economy of
Oh,
the country, and people who are sitting behind these applications, developing them. It's their livelihood to monetize our attention, right? So they will
yeah.
churn out ways and methods in which they'll keep the application going, right? Which is why our screen time is a lot longer than how it used to be back when there was no social media, right? We are
Yeah.
more likely to follow through recommendations. If I'm, say, suppose if I don't know, I've put on a YouTube video looking at how can I maintain my hair. The next I look at shampoo commercials on my Instagram,
Ah, yeah, that's
right? So what is that doing? That's also enabling mindless scrolling, right?
yeah.
Back with TV, we used to either use it for killing our time or for watching it for entertainment with intention, right? A
Ah,
large
yeah.
part of the scrolling over social media can also be unintentional.
I see, I see. So now basically social media is basically like going through like you're under CCTV surveillance. Like you just some AI is just watching you creepily and just coming up like a mastermind at
Ah,
what to attract you with
yeah,
next to
yeah,
keep you hooked on the screen. Like some sort
yeah.
of hallucination.
Indeed, they work with our digital data, right? That's how they maintain the surveillance. So very accurate analogy pointed out there.
So, ma'am, I had a question.
Mhm.
Like, we teenagers, we love social media. Like, figuratively speaking, we have fallen in love with social media. We cannot live without it. But
Mhm.
most of our parents, they, vilify social media. So, I might sound a bit nerdy, bookworm like, but according to a report released in 2021 by Common Sense Media on social media's effects on teens, about half of the 1,500 young people surveyed said social media is very important for them in order to get support and advice, feel less alone, and express themselves creatively, as well as for staying in touch with friends and family while social distancing.
Right.
And 43 63% said that using social media makes them feel better when they are depressed, stressed, or anxious. Among LGBTQ youth, 52% said social media helps them feel better when they are experiencing these emotions. Do we have a tendency to vilify social media? Like, there is so much good that also comes out of it.
Yeah.
So, what is your say?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There is a lot of good that comes out of social media, and I think let's agree that it's here to stay, right? Social media is that industry which is irreversible now, so there's no going back, and we've found so many different outlets of communicating with people that it has made our lives easier. Like you pointed out, it has given a lot of groups and movements their voice, their shapes, like the LGBTQI community, connecting with other people for their sense of solidarity or resonance. Or say, suppose it has helped people connect with their lost members, lost family members, lost friends. I think it has also given a platform for people who earlier didn't have a source or an outlet to display their creative potential. For example, on TikTok, right? Almost kind of not
Yes, ma'am.
exactly, but somewhat has democratized how media can look like. So there's a lot of good that's coming out of it. Having said that, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to point out the critiques of social media, because we do, like you also pointed out from the study, it does have far reaching consequences, right? Especially for young people. And that more so because their brains, the critical thinking, the power of critical thinking is still developing, right? So the impact is going to be manifolds for a younger person as compared to someone who say, suppose, in the generation of our parents, who also had an idea of how life used to look like before social media, right? I think totally okay to have larger debates, larger conversations about the drawbacks of social media, but it's even more important to see, okay, why am I having this particular conversation, right? Like if I'm talking about a particular fake news becoming some kind of an echo and spreading at a fast speed through different groups, what is that I'm getting out of it, right? Is it making me mindful of double checking the information that I'm seeing in front of me, right? When I'm talking about my anxiety out of social media, is it somewhere inviting conversation on, okay, am I somewhere feeling like my idea of beauty is getting disqualified just because I saw somebody else as beautiful over social media, right? Do I need to bring this up with somebody I feel safe to have this conversation with? Do I want to do something about it,
I
right?
see. Ma'am, actually, now in relation to this, I'd actually like to read out an excerpt from an article written by a girl named Anya Surana. She's 13 years old and goes to Lakshmipat Singhani Academy in Kolkata. So she published this in Bookosmia. So I'm going to read an excerpt in third person. So, as I quote, Anya says that everything is just simply edited and modified in social media by whatever people post, and this can lead some people to feel inferior to others. It has been invading people's lives by making them the people who they're actually not, and pretending to be the ones who are actually different, much different from them. So like social media is not a place where people can portray what they really are, while she also feels that social media is a platform through which various people from various backgrounds, countries and cities interact and make friends with. There are also various influencers whose source of income is through social media. Like I would like to add to this saying that perhaps social media, like you said, is a gray area. Like there's not too much bad and not too much good, because for me personally, because like I said in the beginning, I pursue digital arts because I don't go to traditional school. At home I pursue online courses for digital art. So social
Yeah.
media is a place where I can actually create portfolios because I don't have to go to some ICSE board and write exams. Rather I have to like kind of show my work and show what they're worth. So social media is kind of a place that boosts it, because I can't really go on the street and like a hawker I can be like, hey, digital art, something like, all those hawkers who keep shouting like that, right? Like I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
just keep like can't just take my digital art and just call people like that in the street. But
right.
social media is kind of like a place where I can just upload it and people can see it, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think today found out about this podcast through social media, right? Social media has, I would say, also made it accessible for us to reach out to study material or resources that were all early formats, right, or paperback formats. Now we can access the same information in multimodal ways, right? Whatever is more appealing, whatever is likely to catch our interest, whatever is likely to sustain our attention. So I do feel that it also appeals to different kinds of brains, different kinds of temperaments too. And like you said, it also provides a sense of belonging for those of us who could be confined or restricted to a particular space because of whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. Now, just continuing this topic, do you think like people are nowadays like just vilifying social media and painting them like villains too much? Like, do you think like actually there might be more good than bad? If you take away the more how it's affecting our mentality, like I would say, like except for this whole connecting with people and showcasing your works, like you said, like there have been many movements, like for example, you remember the Black Lives Matter movement a
Yeah.
few years ago? So that kind of like popped up worldwide and brought up the whole problem of racism back into the large scope again through social media. Like suppose there was no social media in the city where George Floyd died, people would revolt there, but then it wouldn't spread. So social media is kind of like a flag holder of that. So do you
Yes.
think like it's something which can help boost different events which will make kind of like enlighten people who are in the other side of the world, like something like that?
Right, right. I think, yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if we can necessarily quantify whether it is good or in what amounts it is bad.
Ah,
But
yeah,
I
it's
know
great.
I've said this before, but I do feel it is a recurring theme over here that we will have to see what is it that we are assigning intention and meaning to. If I am a black person and I'm looking at using social media to connect with other people of my community, to campaign further, to look for places to hold protest in, then it's helping me, right? Yeah. But if
Yeah.
I am but say suppose I'm from a particular community and I'm looking at using social media to polarize people, right? To
Yeah, the trolls. You're
become a
talking about the
part.
trolls, right?
Exactly,
The
exactly.
keyboard warriors who hide behind the screens and just use their words like arrows. You're talking about them, right?
Yeah, yeah, because social media somewhere provides them anonymity, right? So it becomes a lot more
Yeah.
easier. Having said that, the second point over here is the lack of regulation that social media has. And regulation is not just something that an individual has to think of, it is a macro level concern, right? It depends on the government of the country, it depends on the cyber acts of the country, right? How well are they laid out? What are the kind of content that they are regulating? Because it's possible for somebody to use social media, misuse social media, but also be filtered out through regulations, right? And it ends up not affecting the people who were likely, possibly potential victims of how they were about to misuse the application. Yes, I will come back. I'll reiterate my point about intentionality while using social media, and of course, also looking at ways in which we can execute regulations, or if there are regulations, how can we use more of it?
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for the answer, man.
Thank you, Siddhant.
So, ma'am, I would like to share something written by Kavya Mehta. She's a 12-year-old, and she has described internet being the beats of our heart, the breath of our lungs, and the
Abhishruti,
source of our
your
life.
audio is on mute. Could you just?
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so Kavya Mehta is a 12-year-old and she has described internet being the beats of our heart, the breath of our lungs, and the source of our lives. So, what is your say on this?
Well, I think we have come to that juncture where Kavya is totally right. Of course, there was a world where this wasn't how it was. I did have some years of those as part of my life where social media wasn't anything that would guide any kind of communication in my life. Probably Mugdha, Archana, and Nidhi will also agree with me. But right now, we are consumed by it. It's everywhere. So I think we'll have to brainstorm, learn, understand how to live with it in an ethical, in a healthy, in a non-oppressive manner. So yeah, I do agree with Kavya. It's I don't know. It depends whether it's a fortunate or an unfortunate reality we have right now.
True. Absolutely.
Wow, wow. Another question from me. Like now, could you share some tips for parents listening to this chat right now?
Okay, on how
No,
to.
no. Actually, alongside that, also before that, could you answer for any red flags? Have you talked about red flags which teens should look out for on social media?
uh, Things that they should be aware of on
Yeah,
social media?
like
Are we
this.
talking about how the kind of impact it can have over them?
Yeah, yeah, like anything, like any warning signs. Like suppose they're on social media and suddenly their feed is being kind of plagued with like very inappropriate ads or like that stuff like that. Which
Right, right, right.
yeah,
Indeed, I think social media actually has the potential to become as addictive or even more addictive than when somebody is dependent on a substance, you know. So,
yeah, yeah,
if that addiction ends up looking like 24/7 obsession with, okay, what, who's going to be my next like, right? Or a lot of thoughts and second guessing into what is it that I'd like to upload, and then that in turn having an impact on their mood, right? Probably looking at social media as the only coping mechanism when I'm feeling low or when I'm feeling upset, that the moment I'm feeling low, I'm going to go over to social
yeah.
media. There's no other way in which I can deal with this emotion, right? Again, if that is the only kind of communication that is existing in this person's life, yeah, of course it's important for us to also check in with this person and get their opinion too on uh, how is their experience over social media. It shouldn't be an agenda that's coming from the outside, right?
True,
That,
true.
okay, I noticed that there is something off between you and social media. Can I check in with you? How things are going for you. Is somebody upsetting you? Is somebody disturbing you? Do you need my help? In what capacity do you need my help? Because it's also possible that if it gets presented as an agenda, the person is likely going to retract back to social media as their coping mechanism and denounce the other kinds of alternatives that are
Yeah,
available.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, could you share some tips for parents listening to this chat right now?
Can you specify on what all exactly?
Like, how to supervise their children and how to use social media and all. So, I
And
don't
how to
think
tame
children
the
get
beast they
this
become if
from.
they become too addicted to social media.
Right, right.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would say at the beginning, it will be helpful to have a conversation with them on why do they feel that they would like to participate in social media. Again, what are their hopes from it? How would they want their social media journey to look like? Where is it that they can take some help from their parents? Where is it that they can take some help from other confidants, other friends? What do they know about this particular app that they are downloading? Is there any point where the parent can step in without the child having to necessarily point that out, like come up with some kind of a gesture, some kind of a code or something where the parent can readily reach out to the child. If, say, suppose the child is already in the middle of dealing with like Siddhant pointed out, the demons of social media, then maybe there are certain ways in which they can probably filter out the kind of information they want to stay with and not want to stay with, unfollow profiles or accounts that they feel are adding to more pressure, adding to their anxiety, or perhaps profiles that they are probably following only because they feel like they're missing out on something. Maybe further have a conversation on, okay, what is it that you're fearing of missing out over here, right? What is your definition of connection? What all falls under it? And if, say, suppose you do miss out on this particular account, on this particular information, what is it that you're gaining back? A lot of the times adolescents come up with very reasonable answers like, okay, I'll probably gain some more hours of sleep, or I'll gain more mental peace over here. So some kind of negotiation over there. Then switching off notifications, right? Notifications are single-handedly controlling our attention, right? Helping them connect back other things that used to be an important part of their lives, whether they are their side interest, hobbies, going out, mingling with other people. Sometimes it helps to establish certain spots in your house as spots where I can use my gadget, spots where I cannot use my gadget, right? Particular time of the day where the family comes together and we can let go of our gadgets at that point of time, right? Just keeping updated with the information about the application. How safe is my information out there? Am I okay sharing this particular thing about myself? Am I not okay? So yes, it may have some small specific conversations. It will also have some large difficult conversations, but it's important to have it especially right at the beginning, so that the parent and the child both don't arrive at a juncture where it becomes very awkward or very difficult for them to any longer initiate conversations on social media.
Wow, that's great. Ma'am, thank you so much for all these answers. It was like really great. Like I kind of expanded my whole universal knowledge on the universe of social media. But before I wrap things up, does anyone in the audience have one final question? A short question which ma'am can answer if we wrap things up? Anyone? Okay, seems not. Then all right, then, ma'am, thank you so much for all these answers. Me and Abhishruti and all the teams have asked all these questions. We're really thankful. And audience, thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast. It's really great to have you all and kind of just able to kind of like spread some more information to all of you. Arjuna, ma'am, would you like to come unmute and say something?
Well, thank you, Siddhant, and thank you, Abhishruti. Well, Soumya, it's been a fascinating discussion, and I, for one, had a lot of takeaways from this wonderful conversation today. I think what you said about not restricting our entry to social media by age, but by confidence, I think that was a brilliant point that you brought out. And I think all of us at some point do know what we are supposed to do. And then there is some peer pressure involved as well. And I'm very glad that you spoke of all those points. I just loved what you said about notifications putting us in chains. There is a world out there outside of social media. And while there are a lot of things that we get on social media, there is some lines to be established as well. Soumya, before I let you go, what about schools? I just wanted to know from you. Do schools say that this is something a child does on their own time? Or is there a role that a school can play as well? Just help their students understand appropriate behavior as well on social media.
Thank you, Archana. It has been a very fascinating conversation. And like I said right at the beginning, the evening has turned out very well for me. About your point on schools, I would say that I think conversations on social media, as much as they merit larger debates, sometimes they also get overlooked just because they are so prevalent in our lives, right? They become very normalized. So it's very easy for us to forget about the actual real life consequences that social media has. Sometimes we read it in the newspaper. Sometimes we come across some articles and we feel like, okay, this is not our reality. We have probably been managing social media very well, right? And that ends up cutting any further potential conversation that we can have to look out for ourselves better. So school is, I think, it's an important stakeholder over there that can step in and hold sensitization programs like they do about other important causes. They can classrooms can together create small or bigger groups that actively debate social media, that also hold children accountable for having conversations on, okay, these are some points on social media that don't help people. These are things that contribute to the discourse of being perfect in our lives. Okay, social media can sometimes also have very toxic matters, very harmful information on, say, something like eating disorder, right? How are we as young agents trying to filter out these information? How are we trying to bring in more ethics into our social media participation? School will definitely help invite these conversations, because most often than not, they just become very normal part of our lives.
Thank you, Soumya. Agree with you, and those are great points for all educators. Soumya, before we let you go, one word that you'd like to say about our young podcasters, Siddhant and Abhishruti?
Oh, I loved speaking to them. I really like the anecdotes
Pleasure
that
was
they
ours.
shared.
Pleasure was ours.
Yeah, some of these anecdotes were very, very real, relatable, I think, to everybody of different ages. Some of them were so funny also. Thank you so much. I think you're doing a
Thank you so much
very
for spending the
great
evening
job
with us.
at initiating such conversations.
Thank you, Soumya. I'll give it back to Siddhant and Abhishruti. Over to you guys.
So, for me personally, I feel after this podcast, I kind of now have kind of like a guidebook. Like social media is not so like crazy for me. It's not like a Amazonian jungle where it's filled with weed and vines. Now I kind of have a clear path, like how to navigate it. And I feel now looking at this, I feel I'm still gonna cut down on my social media because now all the red flags pointed out. Like except for more like the business part, I feel that because of my like small circle of close friends, I feel that one more thing that Mr. Vijay pointed out was that I think like the pixels of the social media is not enough to kind of just experience life. So I'm just gonna stick to real life. I'm gonna be amongst nature, and I'm just gonna chill in nature. I don't need the screen.
Yeah, well, I hope that all of us take some inspiration from you and connect with other important areas of our lives too.
Yeah, yeah. Abhishwati, anything you
Well,
want to
that
say?
was. Oh, yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Okay, cool. Well, that was a marvelous session. Just like Siddhant said, it was truly an eye opening. I'm sure now that we have the tech world, we will analyze between necessity and addiction of social media. Something very context has been said by Anya Surana, another 30-year-old from Kolkata. She says, we should know when to draw a line between real and virtual world. Thank you everyone for joining us. It was great having you. And thank you so much, Samya ma'am, for making some time for us out of your busy schedule.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for coming.